Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mad Science Lab on the Fantasy Football Universe. I am Aaron St. Dennis. Follow me everywhere at FF Mad Scientist. That is Jack, my guest. Follow him at Jack Lucenay. Jack, how's it going, man?
I'm surviving the battle. I just finished wrapping up one of my own lives. We were talking Scott Fishbowl. We were supposed to have a hater on the show, but he didn't show up. So we pivoted and did some Scott Fish strategy, which was a lot based off the mock draft that we did together the week before. So I would definitely recommend people go check out those episodes.
If I only had haters on my podcast, or if I had every hater on my podcast, I'd have no room for guests. But yeah, we did that mock draft for Scott Fishbowl. I put it into my ADP article there. I had I think over on fantasyfootballuniverse.com, I think it was 6 different sites who did 8 different mocks. 2 of them did 2 each. So I used that to kind of come up with ADP for Scott Fishbowl. I know once they get the live drafts going, it gives a live ADP, but that doesn't help if I'm in round 4 and they're starting to tell me who went in round 1. That doesn't help me. So I'd kind of like to know. But I was having this conversation with the guys on Club Fantasy the other day, how, these mocks, as helpful as they are, I think they're pretty fucking useless in the end. Because even in ours and in the one they did, through 4 rounds, there were 10 or 12 QBs gone. And I'm like, everyone's brave at punting quarterback in a mock draft. You see some of these people who've never done it before and people who panic, and you'll see 5 quarterbacks go to the beginning. All of a sudden, people panic. People aren't as brave when the draft is really is for real. So I don't know how much I trust some of these mock drafts. But before we get into it, you want to tell us where we can find you and your work? I know you just said what you did about 20 minutes ago. What else you got going on?
So it's really easy to find me nowadays. It's really all under my name at Jack Lucenay. You can just search me on YouTube. That's where the bulk of my content is. We have 3 shows running on Worst Sports Channel is the name of the channel. But again, it's all tagged under my name, so it's easier just to look up Jack Lucenay. But we have Worst Fantasy Show. That's the fantasy football. That's the one we were just talking about. Worst Wrestling Podcast. We get to talk about wrestling every Saturday live at 4:20 Eastern Standard Time PM. And then Worst Interview drops every Wednesday. This week, for example, we have Big Draft Energy. His interview's dropping on Wednesday. If you guys aren't familiar with Disco, he's a cool guy out of Ottawa. So that interview drops this week.
I love wrestling, but I can't talk wrestling. It's like politics and religion. I find I'm on the wrong side of wrestling. Every wrestling, my buddy on the FFU SC, he's a hardcore Roman guy, and I'm one of the Cody crybabies, so it just doesn't work out at all. He's like, oh, I don't ever want to see Roman lose the title, and I'm like, fuck that. He's got to lose it. My kid started watching it with me maybe 3 years ago, and Roman was the only champion he knew. So get me.
I really want Cody to drop the title, to be perfectly honest.
No, I don't want.
I want to see a little bit of hot potato, and this isn't me saying getting off track, but just I want to see him drop it, win it back. You're never gonna see a 15-time champion again if they don't lose it 14 times.
Remember the Attitude Era? That's why Triple H had so many. They were changing titles. They were changing titles on a Monday Night Raw during the war, so that's how it works.
Bro, but I miss that kind of stuff.
I do too, but there's
bring
no competition.
Not all the time, but a little bit of it back.
Nah, Cody's got to keep it until Roman gets back, but we've gone completely fucking off the rails here. We're 4 minutes in talking wrestling.
All right, we're here
to talk Pittsburgh Steelers, so let's get started here. This is actually I just did yesterday with Evan, SoCal Ball Nerd. We did the Chargers, and there was nothing to talk about in the quarterback room. This one's a little more interesting. We've got the newly acquired Russell Wilson and the newly acquired Justin Fields. I personally think Russell Wilson, I think everyone believes Russell Wilson's going to get first crack at this. I don't know how long. This kind of feels like Justin Fields' rookie year. I feel like the veteran's going to be starting the season, but it's inevitable that Justin Fields is going to eventually get into the game here. So what are your thoughts on these two? Do you have high hopes for either of them? Are you avoiding them both? What are your thoughts?
So I'm drafting both of them. It just really depends where and how it's
okay. So let me ask you a question. You're drafting both of them. Are you drafting Like, are you handcuffing them or are you targeting only one in each draft?
I am generally handcuffing.
Okay.
If I'm only going to target one, I'm going to take Fields simply for the rushing upside.
Especially in Scott Fishbowl.
So that's what I was about to say. This is very league specific. Scott Fishbowl is actually a perfect example of because of the quarterback rushing stats and the limitation on the passing stats. That's where if I am not able to double tap both of them, so it's funny because I didn't even get to bring it up on my show because it escaped me. But like if I'm at the 112 and I am brave enough to punt the quarterbacks, like Fields and Wilson would be a target where I'm going to draft both of them at the turn at like the 11th round to just know I have Steelers quarterback. And I do think Wilson gets the first crack, and just knowing how the Steelers operate, I can tell you if Russell Wilson starts and just is healthy and not completely abysmal. And when I say abysmal, I'm talking like Nathan Peterman 5 interception game. Like if he doesn't really suck, they're gonna let him start the whole year. It's just how the Steelers are. They can be extremely frustrating. If you're someone like me who is like my dad loves the Steelers, and that's why I grew up a Steelers fan. But he's more old school. He doesn't play fantasy football, so he's just watching. He's more patient with what they're doing. Whereas, like, I've been lamenting for years that they need to get a mobile quarterback. I would actually love to see them just move on to Fields earlier in the year and implement that in their offense, but it ain't going to happen. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's just the way they are. Between Tomlin and especially now that they brought in Arthur Smith, Russell Wilson fits the system more. Fields is going to have to wait for either an injury to Wilson or till next year. But because of there is injury risk because Wilson's older, and there is potential that he could just like really not have it anymore. If that was the case, I think if playoffs are on the line or if Tomlin's record of never having a losing season is on the line, they might make that turn to Fields and he'll have fantasy value.
Yeah.
And they go late enough that it's one of the very few situations that I don't mind handcuffing the quarterback because of the upside that Fields presents. But I do think Wilson starts more games.
So we've been on podcasts together in the past, and I don't think we ever agree on anything. But on this one, we seem to be in lockstep here. I'm doing the same. I'm trying to handcuff both of them where possible. But if I can only pick one, I'm taking Fields. I think Fields has more upside, and I think you can get him cheaper. So I agree with you on both counts there. Move on.
I will say Wilson's generally going a little bit cheaper in all the drafts that I've done. Yeah, but I will say too that I feel like because we're in late June, I definitely have that best ball bug. So I'm thinking a lot of like the best ball drafts that I've been doing. And again, Scott Fishbowl, because of very specifically the rushing thing. Like in a normal league, you're right. Like in just like a single quarterback, like redraft, or even I think a lot of normal super flex redrafts where the passing isn't so stamped down.
Yeah.
But again, when you're talking about best ball, like people are just taking like that huge potential of the rushing quarterback. And then it's the same thing with the Scott Fishbowl. So like there are situations where a lot of what I'm seeing right now isn't what's going to equate to like, your normal fantasy leagues, but that's why I always say like, it's so league dependent.
Absolutely. For the running backs here, we've got the interesting ones. Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren, I was on the train there for a while where it looked like he was slowly taking over the job. And then he got to about 50-50, and then Najee slowly won it back. Then we've got Cordero Patterson, who's 33, and Daijun Edwards, the rookie out of Georgia. I have no hope there, no interest in either Patterson or Edwards. I think I have a lot of I'm kind of doing the same thing with the running backs that I did with the quarterbacks. I'm getting both of them late wherever I can, but if I only have one, I've been taking Najee. So looks like anytime I'm drafting Steelers, I'm handcuffing them. But what are your thoughts here on the running back room?
100%. That's the correct decision on Najee. And I've seen people fighting for Jaylen Warren. I think the Jaylen Warren stuff is cute, and
it's cute.
It's cute and it's a misnomer. And it's funny to me because a lot of what they're basing Jaylen Warren's like good production on was like the Matt Canada offense,
Yeah.
which sucked. And the thing is, yeah, he was more effective in that offense, and I was going absolutely crazy. I was making TikToks about it last year. I was losing my mind so much that they were running Najee Harris out of shotgun formation. And I like from like deep shotgun, not like, oh, like, 3 to 5. No, like I'm talking 5-7 step shotgun formation. They got Najee and on like draw plays. I'm like, what in the actual, who draws up a draw play out of shotgun on 2nd and 15?
Matt Canada does.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like, you cannot look at what Jaylen Warren was doing last year and then equate it to this year. And especially, actually, what I would look at is what just happened with the Atlanta Falcons. Everyone expected Bijan to be even that much better, and he still had a decent rookie season. But Tyler Algier was way more involved than people wanted him to be. Cordell Patterson, who's annoyingly found his way onto this team, was more involved than people want him to be. This is going to be the same thing, but Najee fits the offense the best. And it's specifically Arthur Smith, who, when I look at what he was doing and what he's always done, he runs the highest 2 tight end percentage in the NFL. And a lot of it is heavy blocking sets out of single back.
Yeah.
Basically, that's Najee's bread and butter. Jaylen Warren is still going to be featured, but he's definitely going to be more of an accessory as opposed to the main running back that's going to be in this offense, and that's going to be Najee Harris. And I think you're going to see, again, I think people are going to be really annoyed by how much Cordell Patterson ends up mixing in, as like it's going to be between Warren and CPAT kind of mixing in that second running back role.
Yeah.
And then Najee's going to have the lock on like the gross like first, second down work, because again, it's like that's what fits in there. And they were going back to it last year because that's what's always worked for us as the Steelers through our entire history of the organization is Steelers power football. Like every playbook that we've ever had, basically going back to the days of Terry freaking Bradshaw, it's power football offense. A lot of stuff out of I-back formation and single back 2 tight end stuff. And that's what Arthur Smith does a lot of. That's why Derrick Henry was successful in that in the offense when he was back in Tennessee. And that's why a guy like a Bijan or a guy like a Jaylen Warren generally isn't usually the feature back in that type of offense. Those are the complementary backs that come in on the third downs, and they definitely will get points here and there. But the fact that I haven't seen the ADPs recently, but when the last time I checked, Najee and Jaylen Warren were going like next to each other.
These are up to date for Fantasy Pros, half PPR, but keep in mind, Fantasy Pros, it's a lot of it's ECR, not necessarily ADP. Their ADP are 19 and 30, but that's not a lot of best ball, and it's like it's really tough to trust Fantasy Pros ADP this time of year.
Okay, so I've been doing a lot of like the stuff on Underdog, and like in like the 9th, 10th round, Najee and Jaylen are going right next to each other. So a lot of times in those leagues, you're having to make the decision. And kind of like you said, if I'm forced to pick between the two of them, I'm going to take Najee because I think I really see this as being a gross 60-30-10 split. And I think people are going to be really disappointed when Jaylen Warren is the one with the 30.
You make me wish I had a blame Canada drop there for that offense. But moving on to the wide receiver room where it gets kind of interesting. So Deontay's gone. We've got George Pickens, who kind of scares me. He's really high up in a lot of the ADP I see in the drafts, and he goes in a range where I like a lot of the other receivers. I think he's got a great like contested catch ability. I'm just not sure he's the volume guy Deontay was. That's why the guy I've been targeting a lot of. I have a lot of Roman Wilson. I'm a Michigan guy, though, so that could be blatant homerism. We also have got Calvin Austin, the little fast guy, Van Jefferson, Quez Watkins, and Scotty Miller. What are your thoughts here on the wide receiving core?
I have Roman Wilson shares falling out of my ears.
Well, that's good. That's reassuring for me. So
there's one rookie, if there's a rookie wide receiver that I've staked my claim on this year, it's Roman Wilson 1 and Javon Baker 2. Those are like the two rookie wide receivers that have found their way on to easily, I would say 50% of my best ball teams. And those are guys I'm going to be looking at even late in drafts for Scott Fishbowl. And, when I'm in these like 30-round drafts, I'm looking hard at Roman Wilson and Javon Baker. But Roman Wilson specifically, like, guys, I said this last year about the Packers. Certain teams just don't miss on certain positions. Everyone who questioned Jordan Love, I was like, come on, it's the Packers. If there was any other team, I would be like, okay, your questions are valid. No, the Packers don't miss on quarterback any more than the Steelers miss on wide receiver.
I said this on draft day. I said, oh, the Steelers just took a wide receiver on day 2. He just went up 15 spots. Oh, yeah. I couldn't agree more. They never miss. And even like, I know they never re-sign the guys and they always let them move on, but while they're there on that rookie contract, they are hits. So I agree 100%.
But it's not only that, but you combine that with the fact that he walks into the exodus that is the opportunity of Deontay Johnson's role. And the fact that there's nobody else in this offense that scares me even remotely. Like, Calvin Austin is a nice auxiliary player. He is not someone you want to rely on as your wide receiver.
He's Rondell Moore behind the line of scrimmage doing gadget plays.
That's what I'm saying. Like, he's a nice little, fun little gadget player, but he's, like I said, he's not a wide receiver too to lean on. This offense is going to go through Pickens, Roman Wilson, and we'll get to the tight ends, but it's going to be the Muth is really the only one worth talking about. Spoiler alert, but yeah, no, like I said, Roman Wilson to me is like a guarantee, lock, stock, two smoke. There's no way this guy doesn't get 800 to 1,000 yards his rookie season, and then like the touchdowns, you just hope they come. If he gets 5 to 8 touchdowns, like that's just gravy on top. But there's no way he's not producing because they need him right away, and I actually think I prefer Russell Wilson because not that it's exactly the same, but I do see some similarities in Roman Wilson's game to a Tyler Lockett, as opposed to, I'm saying, like the way that they operate within that offense. So I think I like Russell Wilson more. And the thing with Pickens, I don't hate Pickens. I've taken shares of him. He goes late enough that I agree with you. There's often other guys that I'll take in the same range, but for me, it usually ends up being, I think, more of a positional thing of like, I really like the running backs, some of the running backs in that range, some of the tight ends and quarterbacks in that range. But in terms of comparing him straight up to the other wide receivers in that range, like Pickens with Russell Wilson or Justin Fields to me is probably the same as Terry McLaurin with a rookie quarterback.
I take him over McLaurin.
Well, and they go about in a similar range. And again, a lot of the stuff that I'm doing right now with the best ball stuff. So it's like, I get that part of it, but it is a little bit scary to me. You are relying on he's going to have really big games and then kind of fade a little bit. I like him more as a best ball target as opposed to like, he scares me for like a Scott Fishbowl, for example, where he can just disappear on you for a week when you really need him.
Yeah, he feels like he's going to have blow up 35, 40-point weeks and then ghost for 4 weeks. So he's definitely a good best ball target. I guess we can close out the roster portion here with tight end. Like you said, Pat Freiermuth, the only one relevant. There's Darnell Washington, Mecole Pruitt, Connor Hayward. Freiermuth going tight end 16 here, and he's similar to what I said yesterday with Justin Herbert. I don't know if I'm necessarily all in on Freiermuth, but the hatred has gone too far, and at 16, tight end 16, he's free. I can't see a scenario in which he finishes that low unless he misses significant time. So what are your thoughts here on the tight ends, more specifically the Moose?
So it's funny because last season, famously, like my best bit that I had all year was who scored more than Kyle Pitts this week? And that was because Kyle Pitts was very much the square peg trying to be fit in the round hole that was Arthur Smith's offense. I already mentioned earlier when we were talking about the running back schemes that he runs the most tight end 2 sets in the NFL. And that's why you saw a lot of times of like Kyle Pitts and Jonnu Smith were both on the field at the same time. And Kyle Pitts was like running like these ridiculous stretch concepts while Jonnu Smith gets to run like a 5-yard drag and get free yak after. Like it was, so there's a little bit of concern, but the Muth, Freiermuth, the fact that he's a better all-around player, and when I say that as compared to Kyle Pitts, I want to be very specific in what I'm talking about. In Kyle Pitts is so clearly a better athlete, a better wide receiver, faster, all of those things. But in terms of like what you're supposed to do at the tight end position, which is be able to block almost as effectively as you can be a receiver, I think Kyle Pitts is lacking in the blocking department. And that's where, because the Muth is an above average blocker as well, I think he's going to fit more in this system. And because, again, you look at beyond George Pickens and Roman Wilson, and Roman Wilson being a rookie, I think the way that the chain of targets is going to operate really is going to go Pickens deep, Muth, and Wilson kind of floating in the middle. And I think they're actually the ones that are going to see the most targets in the offense. I don't think that they necessarily are going to produce more than George Pickens. We already talked about how Pickens is the guy can go out there, get 2 for 150 and 1. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
That's his game. But Roman Wilson's the guy that's going to go out there, get you 7 for 79. Muth is going to be getting, the same kind of treatment of like the 5 to 8 targets a game. I could see that. So, and again, you talked about the value. And what I see is like a steady presence. He's someone I've paired a lot when I've punted tight end. And when I say punt tight end, to me, punting tight end means I'm taking Brock Bowers, because like that's like the drop off is at about Brock Bowers and like David Njoku and Jake Ferguson. It's like one of those 3, because it's a huge cliff after that.
Ferguson is going way high now, though.
Well, that's the thing. Ferguson people have finally started figuring out like, oh, this guy's probably the second target in the Dallas offense. They're finally starting to wake up to Fergalicious. So that's an ADP that's been rising. And where I was able to get him previously, like I'm not getting him anymore. And so the pivot for me has very much been like, if I take a Brock Bowers, for example, I'm going to take Freiermuth to pair with them. I get a little bit of veteran presence, but a guy who still has, upside and the ability to outproduce his ADP. Like you get that in the Muth, and then you have the super potential of the crazy if Brock Bowers is able to have a crazy rookie season.
All right, moment of truth. Based on their current ADP, give or take a bit, who is a Steeler you're targeting, and who is one you are avoiding?
So I'm avoiding the running backs. It's not part of it is just Najee burnt me so bad last year, but it's also like I talked about, I genuinely think that that's going to be a 60-30-10 split. It's going to be incredibly infuriating. Najee will have just enough value to basically like you're gonna be like, oh, he's kind of doing it, and if one of these other guys just maybe fades out, and it's just gonna be kind of shitty all year. I feel like for the running backs, so I'm fading the running backs. I really don't have a lot of. Last year too, I had so much Najee, like so much Najee. It was so bad.
I didn't have him at all last year because the year before I had a keeper league where my 110 pick was Najee Harris, and after that I had PTSD and had no Najee last year. So who's your target?
Roman Wilson. We talked about it a little bit. He's just going so late, and I see the path to, I would even say conservatively, I see the path to 80, 1,007. Like if he just has a good rookie season, and if it ends up being especially Russell Wilson for the majority of the season, I think Roman Wilson is going to be more of like the PPR kind of wide receiver. I do think he is right now behind Pickens and the Muth, technically speaking, in terms of just pure target. But I think he could even, get past the Muth. There's already good reports of him coming out of camp, and it's Steelers wide receiver. It's just so hard not to bet on him.
All right, bringing us to our final segment here. Let's go with the schedule for this season. I will tell you the game. You just got to tell me game by game, win or loss. All right?
Yeah.
Week 1 at Atlanta.
That's a tough one. I'm going to say we take the loss in the first game. I feel like even though Atlanta, I think Atlanta has a really tough I did on my schedule show, I talked about how Atlanta actually has one of the best fantasy schedules across the season, but their first 3 games are the Steelers, and then it's like the Chiefs and some other really good defense. So it kind of scares me a little bit with like the new quarterback and the new coach, and are they going to be good week 1? But I don't really see how we compete with the combination of their offense, and their defense is underrated, and the fact that it's on the road. I'm going to say we eat that L week 1.
Week 2 at Denver.
We beat Denver. Denver is a team that I don't foresee winning a lot of games.
Week 3 at the Chargers.
Oh, man, 3 road games. I think it's going to be a rough
start. No, sorry. Week 3 home against the Chargers. My bad.
Home against the Chargers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still think we eat that L. I think we start 1-2.
All right. Week 4 at the Colts.
I think we rebound against the Colts. Anthony Richardson still being a young quarterback, our defense is really confusing. So I think that's where we get back to 2-2.
All right. Week 5, home against the Cowboys.
Fuck them Cowboys. We go 3-2.
Fair enough. Week 6 at the Raiders.
That is pure homerism, by the way. I don't actually think we win that game, but I want it to stay 3-2. So I'm saying we win that game. The Raiders, you know what? This is where we start on a little bit of a win streak, unexpected win streak, and we beat the Raiders, and now we're 4-2.
All right. Week 7, home against the Jets.
I'm going to say that Aaron Rodgers is still alive by week 7, and we lose this game, so we're back to 4-3.
All right. Follow that up with a week 8 home game against the Giants.
I love Malik Neighbors, but they got nobody else. We beat the Giants. We're 5-3.
So heading into the bye week, they're 5-3 when they go to the Commanders.
Again, rookie quarterbacks don't usually do well against our defense, even on when it's road games for us. So, man, I hate giving us so many wins, but I'm going to say we're a very shocking 6-3.
No. Be generous now because the next half of the schedule is not fun.
That's what I'm doing basically, is because I feel like Tomlin's gonna do the annoying thing where he goes just over 500 again. But that's why I'm seeing a lot of these kind of weaker teams in the first half of the season. And this is where we got to get our wins now.
Yeah. Week 11 on is brutal. You start at home against the Ravens.
Okay. At home against the Ravens, we're coming off 6-3. We've got a lot of momentum. I'm going to say we get a really sneaky win, because this is just like one of those rivalries that people are going to try and predict a high-scoring game, and it's going to end up being a really stupid 23-17 gross Steelers win that pushes us to 7-3. And now all of a sudden you got Steelers fans talking smack, feeling good about themselves, and then this is where the wheels are going to fall off.
Week 12, going to Cleveland.
Yeah, we lose. We go 7-4.
Follow that up. Week 13, going to Cincy.
Lose another one to Ohio. We go. We're down to 7-5.
Then Cleveland is in your building.
Yeah, I don't. That's one where we're gonna go back to 8-6.
All right. At the Eagles.
Yeah, no, we're 8-7.
All right. At the Ravens.
8-8.
Home against the Chiefs.
8-9.
And that would be home against the Bengals.
So it looks like we're going 500 this year is how I'm predicting it.
How is that possible? Is this schedule? This schedule has got to be right, correct? I copied it off the NFL.
I have no idea. Maybe
I think my math must be off somewhere, because how can you be 9-9? You don't play 18 games.
Yeah, maybe I was counting wrong too.
All right. Well, I'll count it up later. Was that a win? You said that was a win?
Yeah, the Bengals are a win.
All right. I'll have to count that one up later. I've done something wrong, I think, but
it's just between the both of us, honestly. Like maybe I've been
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
too hard today.
6, 7. Oh, you know what? I counted the bye week. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You've got it at 9 and 8.
There you go. Yeah, that makes sense. 9 and 8. That's exactly what we're gonna do. It's so annoying.
Yeah. I just counted the bye week. That's my bad. I counted the bye week. So.
Okay, there we go. That makes more sense. Yeah, 9 and 8. That sounds very Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah. All right, Jack. Thank you for joining me. Before we get out of here, you want to take another second to plug yourself and what you're doing?
Yeah, Worst Sports Channel. Like I said, you can find it by just searching at Jack Lucenay. You'll find me on TikTok, on Twitter, on YouTube. You'll find me at the Expo this year. Shout out to the Fantasy Football Expo. I had Bob Lung, the creator of the Expo, on Worst Interview recently. So make sure you go check those out. They go all the way back. We're about to hit our 1 year, actually. Aaron was on one of the very early episodes, all the way back when it was still Wildcard Wednesdays, and I was just a joker. But nowadays, it's Worst Interview on the Worst Sports Channel, so make sure you guys go check that out.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me. I will see you again, or see you for the first time, I think, at the Expo. Don't believe you were there last year. Head over to fantasyfootballuniverse.com. Check out all of our team pages that have the schedules here. We've got offense and defensive depth charts, and you'll want to see this at the end once we get in season. I've got up-to-the-date weather trackers for each city, so that could be helpful, especially for those of you who have kickers. I have a lot of leagues. I like kickers. So thank you all for tuning in. Check back tomorrow for the next team. Off the top of my head, I can't remember who it is, but it'll be another one of the 32 teams. Thank you all. Take care, everyone. Have a great night.